Welcome to Uncommon Core, where we explore the big ideas in crypto from first principles. This show is hosted by Su Zhu, the CEO and Chief Investment Officer of 3 Arrows Capital, and me, Hasu, a crypto researcher and writer. Today, Su and I are sitting down with Matti and Viskantes of Zee Prime Capital. These two have consistently been among my favorite people to follow on crypto Twitter. So I'm very glad that they agreed to have this conversation with us. In fact, we ended up talking for so long that we have to release the episode in 2 parts. In this first half, we covered the value of crypto Twitter in finding and spreading ideas, Zee Prime's unique investment thesis and how it is to be an outsider in the VC space, how mimetics and reflexivity shape the crypto markets, and whether this current crypto cycle will be the last. I hope you enjoy this conversation. I know I did. I came across you guys because of your Twitter account. You both sort of became some of my favorite people on Twitter in 2020. And I had no idea that you work for VC or that you even work at the same firm, right? Because you didn't even have that in your bio. And like just from reading your Twitter, it would never have occurred to me that you work for a VC because you don't take yourself too seriously. Like you post a ton of memes, but also great analysis. It seems like you're not really concerned with leaking your thesis that you have for different projects and also criticize stuff about others. So I respect it a lot. Especially you really understand like how ideas spread in markets and on social media, and we'll get into that later. So would you mind giving us a quick intro of yourself and Zee Prime?
Thanks, Hasu. It was a very nice intro from you. I'm Matti. I've co-founded Zee Prime, and I'm also helping to build Hydra DX, and I'm also engaged in other kind of side projects that we run within Zee Prime. Yeah, so I guess that's the short story about me.
Viskantes here. I used to play poker professionally for a couple of years, same as you, Hasu. So I don't even think of myself as VC. I'm much closer to this like DeFi, crypto degen culture because poker was a bit similar, and I grew up there with all the poker players doing crazy bets on a lot of stuff, and it kind of went naturally in crypto for me to kind of build this, let's say, persona. So I have this conflicting um, kind of personality where one part of me is a VC. I want to be deep down in projects, kind of help the team, but the other part of me is also about running a portfolio of liquid bets, kind of deganing into farms and doing all this fun and crazy stuff that DeFi allows now. Even like some short-term things like playing some algo stablecoins, even though I don't really think that many of them are not here to stay, but I still play them because it's fun and it's a game. It has some rules and you can figure out how the game works and how to exploit it. So this is what I do. So, and this is where I draw joy from. But at the end of the day, the space is growing quite fast, and you can meet a lot of uh, crazy and smart people who are building the future of finance or future of France, how the meme goes. So yeah, I love both aspects of the space, and that's why I joined Zee Prime, because they allow me to kind of go deeper into projects and understand the tech and the founders, the teams behind the projects a bit more, not just ape into their farms and just play with their stuff. So yeah.
So I want to go back to your Twitter account briefly because I'm like still so amazed by. I mean, usually people use their Twitter if they're also big investors. They use their Twitter to generate deal flow and leads for their fund, but you guys don't even mention the fund in your Twitter. I think so. What do you use Twitter for? Like, why do you use it? What do you try to get out of it?
So from my end, I mean, I don't mention it now. I had it there briefly. I kind of start to see value in having a pseudonymous account or like close to anon, despite I'm not really anon. People, if really want to, people can really like dig down and just find my real name and stuff. So I'm not really like too like focused on that, but I find value and freedom in having this kind of no strings attached account that can speak freely and doesn't post as some representative of some other entity or something like that. So that's why I decided to experiment with this. I mean, I may even put it back later that I'm part of Zee Prime, but everyone who follows me already kind of knows that, or they know that I invest. And actually, despite me not having it in my bio, I retweet stuff from Zee Prime. I act sometimes. I kind of act as VC as well on Twitter. So we actually get a fair amount of deal flow via this way. I myself had a couple of early founders getting in touch with me because of something I wrote about stablecoins or about synthetics, and we made a couple of very interesting and successful investments based on my activity, despite me not really posing as a VC. So yeah, so it's actually it's and also there is this right now there is this meme which I think is misguided, but there is this meme of like VC bet, right? So
Yeah.
this my persona is more close to standard DeFi crypto user, and that's why maybe some people find it more likable than some big name ivory tower VC who pretends he's like on top of everything all the time.
For myself, I mean, my Twitter account, like, it wasn't very followed until very recently. I think it was the first kind of writings that I published. I think it was my rebuttal to Bernice's essay that he wrote, and I think it was Sue who retweeted it or something like that, and then it started for me, as in like getting the following on Twitter. I wasn't really productive on Twitter before that, and I still am not tweeting as much as Fiski does. And then it was, yeah, the Deribit Insight also. So I kind of my essays helped me to build this following, and obviously reflexivity kicked in. I became more productive, and but I still don't feel like tweeting too often. I feel like you have to kind of earn that, sort of balance it with 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 work that you do outside of Twitter. So I still feel like I have to kind of I don't want to feel entitled or anything like that. So I think it's a great tool, and Twitter itself is I think it's replacing these hubs, like geographic hubs in a way. So I think 2017, I mean, there was crypto Twitter and 2016 and even before that, right? But I think it's becoming sort of more dominant, and it's dominating now over physical locations. So you don't have to be in San Francisco anymore. You don't have to be in New York. You can be anywhere, and we are sort of a proof of that.
Sue, how do you feel about like your use of Twitter? I don't think we have ever talked about this on air, but for the longest time you had no Twitter account, right? Only in 2018, like mid 2018 or something, and very late you made yours. So then kind of skyrocketed from there, right?
Yeah, I think previously I would talk more on Discord or on Telegram groups, but kind of just saw all the stuff people saying on Twitter and just felt like it's a good way to meet people. Um, and it's like a good way to just get your message out there, whatever it is. And I think too that like I had always been more provocative in Telegram groups, and then I realized like it's more fun to provoke a large amount of people than a smaller amount of people. So that kind of
Yeah.
fed my ego a little bit. I think Kyle then saw me tweet, and then when he saw me get to 20,000 followers, he's like, all right, like I'm missing out, like I got to get in on this action. So he kind of he got into the mix there as well. But like I've met the best contacts in crypto from Twitter, like Arthur0x. When I had 1,000 followers, he had followed me and he DM'd me. At that time, my DMs were open, and he DM'd me and said, "Let's just get coffee sometime. I'm writing research in an incubator right now. Like I've got this 30-page report on a project called SNX. It's 2 cents. I think it can go to $2. And I obviously brushed him off, whatever. It's like this young kid, whatever. But we did have coffee, and then a few months later, I'm like, wow, you're actually smart. So I think Twitter is like one of the best ways to meet people, because it's just like people can find you, you can find them, and the ideas are all out there. But I do agree with Viscontis too, in the sense that, like, it's difficult at some point to separate the persona from the beliefs, from like the need to project a persona and like to be a character. So like sometimes, like, I feel like, I'm just playing a character at this point, like, as opposed to be able to say the things that I might want to say in a certain situation. So I think it's always tough to balance that. So I might make an alt one day, but one, but we'll see.
Yeah, that might be one of the problems, right? When it's really fun to provoke and build a character that has like these cartoonish elements, like especially when it comes to like bullish posting and so on. But then can become like a trap.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get out of that.
Yeah, you get forced into a persona then, um, because you get rewards, right, in terms of, like, in form of likes, retweets, and etc. And it kind of rewards this particular behavior of yours, and then you feel like you need to kind of replicate it and get more likes. So it's yeah, it can be a trap, and and for some people it is a trap. I think that people have, they even do like these breaks from Twitter, like that they have to take a break because they're not handling it well, probably.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said, right? You select for the people who wanted to hear your previous content, right? If you got to 20K with like posting bullish memes, then you have a lot of followers who want to hear bullish memes. And if you then post something else, then it can get very difficult, right?
It's also about consistency. Like if you are consistently bullish about Ethereum, then it's very hard to kind of break out of that loop and like be bearish or like criticize it, because a lot of your followers will like not take it lightly, right? So this is actually something that I'm often like I try to exercise, that I try to provide even opinions that I may not necessarily fully agree with, but I just put it out there, just to kind of see what the response is, how the market and the community feels about stuff, and yeah, I even have a disclaimer that not everything that I write about I mean really seriously, and I try to have fun, and yeah, maybe that's the reason. One of the reasons I don't still have 20K followers, because I'm often so inconsistent, I would say. Um, I try to have fun more than like follow an agenda. So
Yeah, I think with this, it's similar to like becoming a particular asset maximalist. So you fall into this hole that keeps on giving. So I think that many Bitcoiners, like, why they don't look beyond is because they stumble upon Bitcoin, and it has rewarded them with so much sort of cash and wealth that it's a very comfy hole, and you don't want to get out of it because you feel like you're cheating on it or something like that, and you just keep on being stuck, and it's a very comfy hole. And the same goes for Ethereum, and the same goes for your sort of identity that is being rewarded online or on Twitter. So it's a very similar mechanism.
for me, the one example I can provide was, I mean, I was super bullish on synthetics early on. Despite it has many design flaws, I still saw that there is much more potential, and the team is like in a beast mode, building fast and growing, and the community was great. But my most popular article was actually criticism on synthetics and how it is getting wrecked by various design exploits, such as Oracle front running. And at that time, I was actually one of the SNX Spartans, I would say. I got a lot of followers who were fans of synthetics, but it worked out well. Like everyone was taking it very seriously, that this is actually happening. There was no like backlash from the community that I dare to fat their backs. So this was pleasant surprise for me at least.
We already got like a glimpse at your investment style and how you think about different projects, but so the listener can really get an idea of what kind of ZPC does as a firm. So how would you describe your investment style, and what are some of your proudest bets?
So I think that maybe I could sort of tell you the the story of Zee Prime, or maybe like how it kind of evolved?
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
that's the best way to get an idea. So we don't really have like a fancy thesis, but we do have fancy memes, though. I think. Um, so I left the previous crypto fund because I thought that it was that was the end of 2018, and I thought that the industry is changing, and it requires this kind of like new type of mindset. So and that is one that is not so much based on the process, but on something that I would call substance. And it was sort of convenient to believe that, of course, because I have an unconventional background for an investor, like in terms of nationality, location, etc. So when I say substance, I mean like this one-off thing. So the process is based on like pattern recognition, but substance is this like abstract, spur of the moment thing, something that people say computers cannot do. So I think that investor process in crypto or VC is you need to be in San Francisco, New York. You have to speak a certain way. You have to wear a Patagonia vest or something. Like perhaps this is a caricature, but you get the gist. It works, right? So you're copying these surface attributes, and I think the substance cannot be imitated. So I felt like I want to do things differently. I know it's a cliche thing to say, but this is how it was. And I was lucky that a friend of mine, Michael, approached me. So we're buddies from the university days, and we started investing together. And later on, Jacob joined, and Fisky, and this is how Zee Prime sort of came to be. And the very brand, the website, etc. It had this like non-serious look. I really felt like I don't want to take myself too seriously, but doesn't mean that we don't take our work seriously. And I was very happy with that. Like we did not define the investment thesis. Like we didn't write like a long paper or anything like that. We just said like crypto and crypto related. So that was kind of the beginning. And our first, like one of our first investments was Hive.one. So I was friend with Maciek, the founder of Hive.one. I don't know if you guys know Hive, but probably Hasu, I think that you know it.
Yeah,
Um,
I use it a lot.
yeah. So and for a long time, believe it or not, like no one wanted to invest in Hive because it has a rather complicated vision. Um, and we joined the founder on his like US roadshow, when he was meeting with investors, and we sort of we were present at the meetings in New York and San Francisco, and there I really felt like a total outsider. So one would think that VCs, especially crypto VCs, would be like very open and inclusive, uh, but I could tell that we did not fit this pattern for those guys, and they looked at us like with a suspicion. Um, and there's an actually funny story. So we had an event in San Francisco. It was like a panel discussion. And after the event, I talked to a founder, and I don't remember what his project was, but he was starting a company, and we had a good chat. And he asked me if I would be interested to invest because he knew that I was investing, and I said that sure, like I want to hear more. And he asked like where our office was in San Francisco so that he could come pitch. And when he learned that we're not local, he was like, well, I'm looking for someone local to invest, so kind of it it was, yeah, for me it was astonishing. So anyhow, like we learned a lesson there, and I realized that this like process based circle jerk cannot be something that will change the world. um, so I do not believe that the next big thing will have a private seed round with those regular names in it. So I think that would be too easy. I mean, most big name VCs missed out on Ethereum, but aped into Ethereum killers, right? So I wanted to be as far from those type of investors as I could. So again, it's convenient because Zee Prime was an outsider, so it's easy to sort of bet on being an outsider. We were not let in. So I'm not saying that these guys are not smart. They're probably in some instances much smarter than I am. But this is the sort of the mimetic aspect of Zee Prime, of the diagram.
Maybe we should actually talk about
Okay.
the diagram. Just describe it to the people, because a while ago, Fisky posted something on Twitter, right? That may have been a meme, but it stuck with me nonetheless. And it shows a Venn diagram with three sets and a Z prime in the middle, right? And one Venn diagram is reflexivity, and it says mimetics and markets as mirrors. And it has George Soros, I think it's Peter Thiel, and Rene Girard, right? And the second set is optionality with Nassim Taleb, and it says risk, asymmetry, anti-fragility, and uncertainty. And then the third set is free markets, the art of the Dao, and creative destruction. And it says on the outside Austrian economics, and it's I think Mises, Hayek, and Milton Friedman. So what do what do you mean by that?
Just let me briefly say that yesterday I got an email from like a fund of fund, crypto fund of
Mhm.
fund, and he asked me like send some docs on Z Prime. I sent the tweet storm.
Yeah,
So
brilliant.
I sent the tweet storm. So um, I mean this meme. I mean it was I don't even remember when I actually did this, but yeah. So I think that um, it's more a meme than like something that is really fundamental. But it's kind of a good mix about things that we often discuss and we might believe in. Um, so as I mentioned before, like there's this mimetic aspect. So we want to be aware of of mimetism and always try to assess the reflexivity potential and try to understand the markets. Even when we live in a sort of distorted world, one could say. Um, and yeah, and then the Taleb side is definitely more conventional. Like be aware that you're always operating under uncertainty, make bets that are asymmetric to the upside. But I mean that's generally sort of VC portfolio building. But this meme represents like this kind of resentment of process, I'd say. So the fact that I put it in a meme and not written about it, I think it's kind of more defining. And then there's a part, I think uh, it might be in Fooled by Randomness and by Nassim Taleb, where he wrote that he took a lesson from Soros, that every time he was starting meeting and like with investors in his shop, he was making sure, like the first thing that he made sure is that letting them know that they're a bunch of idiots that don't know anything, and they're mistake prone, but they're sort of endowed with this rare privilege of actually knowing that they don't know anything. So that's kind of the message, I'd say, behind this, if it makes sense.
But it's actually it's also something that kind of reflects on the practice of how Z Prime invests. For example, I am more in the camp of being a DeFi digger slash farmer, and I always argue with Matti that we should farm more, that we have a lot of I don't know, BTC, a lot of capital that just sits idly, and I'm like, we should just put it into yield farms and just earn like additional income on it. And he always argues that it's actually a concave strategy, that you either win, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40% a year, or you ape into something really crazy, but then the risk is higher, or you can lose it all if the smart contract is buggy, or if there is some exploit, or if something happens on the layer that secures it. So Z Prime is not like we are not farming. We are providing liquidity. We are running nodes and stuff like that. But we definitely keep in mind that we don't want to get into game of picking up pennies before the steamroller. So we try to aim for bets that have much more upside than they have downside. And like a lot of DeFi is not like this, even though it seems like it's like endless money rain. But the music may stop someday on some big protocols or DeFi platforms, and we don't want to get caught naked, when the tide is off.
Yeah, so that sums it up. Like we generally have a very sort of ad hoc mode of operation. Our thesis is flexible, and I would say that each one of us has like a different thesis, and even those keep evolving. So we don't agree on many things, but we're able to remain mostly respectful in these disagreements.
Oh, we argue like crazy sometimes, though.
Yeah, but I think that this is what helps us. And to be honest, like I mean, I was plenty wrong. Like since the beginning, I like before we had this synthetics moment, we were pretty. I don't want to say bearish, but we were unsure about tokens, right? And we didn't see a sustainable model. So I call it, like, for myself, the synthetics moment. It's a credit to the team. I actually realized, okay, like we can build these tokenized networks that make sense.
Maybe let's zoom into one of the sets, the reflexivity, because that's how I found you the first time, and it was your article that kind of Su made the connection, right, between you and Deribit Insights, and then you sent in
Mm-hmm.
your article on reflexivity and imitation, and then I read it and thought it was an amazing article. I still think it's definitely in my top 3 articles that we published on Deribit Insights in the last year. It was
Thanks.
so good. Everyone should read it for sure. I would love to talk about that article a little bit. So, what are memes or mimetic imitation, and how does it affect reflexivity?
Memes, you can look at it from as the meme on the internet, the funny pictures, and then there are memes and as in like the unit of imitation. So these are like cultural units of imitation. I would define them probably. And reflexivity is kind of, I mean, do we have to define reflexivity? I think people understand the flywheel. And and I mean, in order to get a flywheel going, you have to put something on the flywheel in a way, right? And this is and memes, be they there's funny pictures with are sort of related to the Dawkinsian memes. They are the things that can sort of start this because they reduce nuance and they enable us to kind of to rally, and in a way they might be creating a Schelling point, but they are the basic units that allow us to kind of communicate without really communicating.
For me, I mean, I kind of partially disagree that memes always reduce nuance. When you create a meme, you usually go to a meme template, right? And the meme template itself, it provides some meta position or meta information on what kind of emotion or information you want to convey. But then, you treat it as a canvas. You have this template that gives it some structure, but then you can put anything on it. So it can go from simple jokes that go viral because it's just simply funny, to very deep insights into some sort of a subconscious of the internet or some particular community, or like some it gives you a zeitgeist sometimes. And in crypto, naturally, when markets are going down, you see a lot of memes with pink Wojaks, bleeding from their eyes. When markets are going up, you see all these happy green pepper frogs, and it's really simple. Then you know that people are happy that number up, and people are sad when number down. But beneath that, sometimes you see some more nuanced information. You see how how people think about various stuff, and you don't need to read like long articles. You don't need to kind of go deep to understand it. You just see a couple of memes, and okay, so this is how the current tide turned today. You can, I mean, it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just random jokes, but sometimes you really can have a glimpse into the subconscious. And like crypto community is still pretty small and like pretty unified in a lot of ways. So you can see it flowing with the memes, which I'm not sure if it can provide you with some like actionable insight, like I should invest in this or that, but it definitely helps to understand the space and how it is going, and what are its values, and like the philosophy.
I mean, it always captures an emotion, right? And it's an emotion is a powerful thing, and then your sort of primitive brain takes over. But it's funny because I was creating like this design brief for a designer for Hydra DX actually, to to create some kind of design things for us. And this is a guy that is totally outside of crypto. And I was like trying to explain DeFi, and and as I was explaining it and putting like different like memes in, I realized how weird it must be for someone who's not like from the group, and that he's just looking at it right now, and I'm describing these anon, an anon person who is like a thought leader within, or whatever you want to call it. um, and I realized that you almost create a unique language that if you're an outsider, you cannot really comprehend. So memes are, I mean, first they're two different things, like memes on the as pictures, and meme um, as the unit of imitation. But I think they're becoming very powerful these days, and this is how reflexivity is kind of connected, because with this, um, I know that Fisky disagrees with the nuance reduction, but I think that it's connected to something going viral. I saw a video. It was Bezos discussing it, right? That if you want something to go viral, you need to reduce the nuance and add emotion, right? And this is exactly what these memes are doing. So yeah, uh, and they will become more powerful, I think.
Well, I'm not saying I disagree completely, but partially, there is this YouTube channel. It's pretty small. It's called Meme Analysis, and this guy analyzes various memes, and he probably has some psychology degree or something like that. So he goes very deep, and it's kind of interesting. There is this one meme called "Are you winning, son?" With the dad coming into the room and the son is playing on computer or something, and he goes really deep into explaining how the meme can turn from a simple joke which makes fun of this generational gap uh, into like complete, like the collective sadness of present kids who are stuck behind their computers, and the only way they can communicate is via computer, and it goes even deeper. It's like it was almost depressive. So I'm just saying that sometimes the emotion you can convey is actually pretty nuanced, and it goes much deeper than just happy or sad or funny or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well, and I'm actually convinced that like the way we analyze like 15th century paintings, right? There are people who do that today. I think like in another 500 years, people will analyze the memes of like the 21st century in order to understand the zeitgeist in a way that you cannot understand any different way, because these memes convey like such fine information and mood swings. I think that you just don't pick up anywhere else.
yeah, and they also, when you think about it, they protect the secret of the tribe, because again, if you do not understand the language of the tribe, these are totally meaningless to you. Like I just like created a meme a couple of minutes ago before this, just as a response to a thing, and if I show it to someone, like even if I show it to my girlfriend, like she wouldn't understand at all. So um, it's definitely an interesting thing, interesting phenomena.
So you have created some of the most memorable memes. I mean, how are you so good at this? Like the reasonably sized house and preferring wealth, and like I mean, how do you do it, right? It feel like how do you make such viral memes?
Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. But I I do agree with you that I think memes, they are, like in the old days when you read English literature from the 19th century, they have tons of these Greek and Latin allusions, and they have these biblical allusions, right? Like everything has all these, and it's sort of a way to tie information from the past, present, future, and it's also a way to communicate that that there's some assumed body of knowledge, right? And it can be as deep as you want it to be or as shallow as you want it to be. Like when Dante wrote the Inferno, right? Like the genius of it too is that it was both commentary on contemporary Florentine politics as well as a commentary on so many other things at the same time. And so I see memes as similar to this, where it's like, you know, when you know when I meme about like the bottom being in and things like that, like I also think people understand, like when I have my over the top prefer wealth memes too. I think people understand that it's both a caricature of this, but it's also like it's also real, right? It's also like the fact that this is how you get a group of people to really believe in what they're doing and what they're holding, right? Because if you don't, then when you're up 10x, when you're up 50x, 100x, you're just gonna press the sell button and then buy a house, right? That's all you're gonna do. But if you need a house, if you understand that your house needs to be sized proportionally, then you have to think about it a bit more. So I think for me, it's just like I want my followers to do well and to kind of embody and to kind of get how they should be thinking about crypto. Like I'm a firm believer that this is the last cycle, that you're not going to be able to cutely just buy an 85% down and then do another cycle all over again. And I think a lot of people don't realize this still. They think like, oh yeah, we're just gonna like go into some backwardation, like buy some Bitcoin at 20K and then maybe 15K and then do it all over again. Like if the things we do matter in crypto, then this is the time that they matter. So I just think that's kind of my general message, and I kind of try to convey it as like simply as possible, I guess. So
I love that commentary. I think it's like it conveys a level of urgency that many people in the space don't have,
yeah,
that they should have. I also agree that this is likely the last cycle. I mean, we talked about this in private, that if Bitcoin goes to 150K or something, then half of the world's billionaires are going to be from crypto, and it's just such an insane statistic to wrap your head around. I mean, that alone shows that there couldn't possibly be another cycle after that, right? Unless we get into the territory of actual wealth creation instead of wealth redistribution, as I would argue we are in right now.
I mean, maybe the thing is that we still measure wealth in dollars. That you can still. I mean, we can have multiple bubbles if let's say if fiat will be like getting less and less valuable, then if we measure everything in it, then the bubbles are infinite, right? There's nothing stopping it from going higher just because the base is smaller. The base unit is getting less and less valuable. Um, so I mean, like nobody wants to hold fiat, but everybody wants to measure their wealth in fiat because it makes them feel like they are more wealthy and the wealth is being created and accumulated by them.
Yeah, it's like a global leaderboard, right? I mean, there might be another global leaderboard where people can compare themselves with others in the future, but right now it's the only leaderboard we have, and these leaderboards have like insane network effect. It's very hard to move to something else.
And funny that Sue was discussing this perma bubble or the ultimate bull run. I haven't stumbled upon anyone that would actually be able to argue that. I was surprised to. I mean that Sue. I mean we also kind of chatted about it just briefly. But I think that a lot of crypto OGs, whatever you want to call them, they have this PTSD from
exactly.
from all the years that they're calling the top. This is going to be again one of those moments, and I mean I understand that, but there are alternative scenarios to that one as well, and I think that it's interesting to entertain this kind of perma bubble idea, or maybe it's not bubble because I think that when sometimes collective hallucination can be more powerful than reality, and I think that we've seen it outside of crypto markets, and this is not anything new, and we should definitely talk about it more. And I don't see many people actually being able to even think about it, and that makes me so kind of interested in the very idea, because I don't want to say it's contrarian. It's not really contrarian. It's pretty independent, I think, and it's pretty risky as well, right?
Well, I created this GIF which shows all the Bitcoin bubbles, if you want to call them, and it's like 6 of them already, and each one was like order of magnitude bigger than the last one. So after like 5 or 6 times, people kind of learned this pattern and they expect it to occur again. So when Sue says that now the pattern will be broken, is actually pretty bold claim, and people are getting ready for another like bear market, for another minus 80% because they already seen it in the past couple of times. So when you are betting against that, you are betting not just against like it objectively happening, but against the narrative as well. Because when people expect it to happen, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, which, if enough people await for it to happen, then, when Bitcoin will grow high enough, some people may just, make it happen by having itchy trigger finger and just, sell their load. So it's actually very hard to bet against this narrative, not the objective reality that makes sense that crypto is here to stay and to change the world in a meaningful way. But the narrative is still very strong among many, even big bag holders, that may turn the tide just by selling.
Yeah, you're betting against a very powerful, ironic meme of this time is different, right?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
Yeah.
That actually brings us back to like the kind of narrative investing and reflexivity, right? Just because people believe something will happen, that can make it happen. And that's one thing that I actually took away from your article as well. And that I also strongly believe in, like kind of the bubble theory of money, right? Bitcoin is, or like money is the bubble that never pops, right? It keeps growing as a bubble, and then like when it's large enough, then it doesn't need to pop because it has become useful, right? Because it actually is liquid and is a network of people to transact, right? Um, so what do you think we can learn from this analysis of memes and reflexivity and narrative um, about investing in the crypto markets?
So it's as I said before, it's very hard to take any actionable advice just seeing a meme and then investing in something. What I would say we can learn is that, like, reality is largely negotiable, and let's say there are like two types of fundamentals. One are these hard fundamentals that people learn at school, like how to value a company, how to do accounting and how to then invest based on that. And then there is other type of, which I also believe it's fundamental, but it's like this. It's much less a science and much more an art. The fundamental, you know, perception of reality by crowds and by communities, and like, yeah, now even amplified by social media. The best example, which, like, I believe we all agree on, is Elon Musk, who became richest man on the earth, not by having the most successful car company, because it's not, they are not producing nearly enough cars to be the biggest one, but by selling the narrative, like combined narrative of this new type of car that is like much better, and also connecting it to his other dream, which is colonizing Mars, and people are just jumping on that narrative bandwagon more than they are jumping on the future cash flows of Tesla, the company. So this is the best example of, like, all the financial analysts I know, even my good friends from like traditional finance who are like investing in stock markets for a long time. They were shorting Tesla, or they were like at least skeptically like bashing it, saying that I don't want to short it, but I don't think it's sustainable or anything. But if you invest according to hard fundamentals, only according to DCF and like value investing principles, you probably won't lose too much money, but you also will miss the biggest opportunities you can find during any timeline, not only this timeline, but like, I believe any timeline had some hidden opportunities that were so outside of the box of like traditional fundamental thinking that they were like unreachable to most of the educated crowd. And that's why, like, Pepe the Frogs and Neats became Link Marines and made it, because they understood that it's not about the token being like value accretive, it's about the narrative. And this is something that I mean, I don't I don't want people to just abandon the hard fundamentals and just disregard like stuff that maybe matters in an economic sense, but just don't take it for granted that this is the way to think about the world, because it clearly isn't, and we have many examples of it not being the best way to think about the world.
because you asked about what we can take from it and what we can learn from it. What's the lesson? I think that we should look at value investing, Warren Buffett, as a meme as well,
Mm.
and then try to look at new memes that will help to redefine the fundamentals, because I think the fundamentals can be defined only exposed. in like this a paradigm shift or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's the lesson. And the best stories in history are those that are being told all over again, right? So that is also a lesson.
That's such a good way to put it, I think, where there's definitely this school of thought which thinks that value investors are the rational ones, and then anything that is not value is therefore a bubble, or it's like gonna pop, or it's gonna and like if you just think about it, this is nothing new, right? I mean, when Apple like was going to make the iPhone, like there had been smartphones for years in Japan. There had been all this stuff before. They they just sold the vision. They had the community. They had the memes, right? And like memes are fundamentals, I think, in a sense. There's no distinction, right? Where you think about a different world where Palm Pilots were had a much better community, had a much better meme. They were just designed in a different way. We'd be all using Palm right now, probably. And it's these are all things that I think you can't separate out. And that's why I think, like, especially for value investors, when they come into crypto, they expect a lot of things to look the same as they do when they go and buy like a cash on cash business. And what they don't recognize is that the internet is a new medium, right? And you should look at what would look like fundamentals on this new medium. What would that be, right? So I think that's kind of what you're getting at as well.
I feel like we discussed a lot of takeaways actually for investors in the crypto space. I mean, like way more than you predicted right in the beginning. I think that I fully agree. I was on board with this before that crypto is actually all about the narrative. I mean, crypto is and like bootstrapping a new money and bootstrapping new networks is a form of coordination game, and the memes are a coordination mechanism, and the fundamentals like the tech is also a coordination mechanism in the sense. So if the tech doesn't work, then the memes, they sort of take a hit, right? And kind of the coordination takes a hit because it can't really play out. And that's why often I feel like you see projects do better before they actually release anything tangible to that people can actually try, because at that point, like before that point where they actually release their product, then the optionality in the minds of investors is still so big that they can project anything. Like any meme can project it on a project that doesn't exist yet. But when the project actually exists and has to meet the expectations of investors in the real world, then kind of the meme can often die. And then kind of the whole like narrative and equilibrium will reset. Like before the show started, we talked about how is it possible that something like Cardano or IOTA, how is it possible that they are still in the top 20? Like these projects are like so shit, like to put it frank. They have like nothing going for them, but they have the community, they have the memes, and they have not ever had to face a reality check in the real world, right? They don't have a product. But I think this offers like one explanation for why they can stick around, simply because they never had to fulfill the investors' expectations yet.
Yeah, this is something I wrote a while ago on Twitter as well. That when the project is in like a pre-launch stage, the optionality is endless. It is shapeless.
Yeah.
It can become basically anything it wants, and investors are kind of pricing it in a way that they are betting on it being a new internet or whatever. Once the project becomes like tangible, once it starts doing anything like outside, once it starts getting real traction, which you can measure, which you can like evaluate, you can have hard metrics on stuff like fees and like unique addresses, then it's the optionality slowly disappears and the reality kicks in. But for these projects that never get to that point of actually being used in the real world, like IOTA, this never happens, so the story can go on without reality checks. So yeah, I agree that as long as they don't start doing anything real, they can really go ahead with the narrative. And with every bull market, it kind of resurrects because there are new people coming in, and they are enamored by the narrative the project tells.
Yeah, the investors buy the narrative,
Yeah.
right? They don't buy something that they actually intend to use or that even someone else intends to use, and that's why it works.
Yeah.
That actually brings us to another article that you wrote, Matti, which is kind of the scapegoat mechanism. So Girard argued that kind of whenever there's conflict, right, between like different people or groups of people, then you need a way to diffuse that. And one way to diffuse it is kind of this they find a common scapegoat, right, and then they sacrifice the scapegoat, and then the friction is resolved. And you like linked that to crypto, which I thought was amazing, and applied it to the DeFi bubble, quote unquote, right? And that we can't even remember anymore because it was it didn't like the DeFi bear market didn't last for very long.
Yeah.
So you argued that kind of YFI and Andre Cronje was sacrificed by the community, so that DeFi could live.
Yeah, I think that I felt that I actually wrote like the very first draft of this sometime in 2018 when I saw so much hate on towards Ethereum and Vitalik during the dump, and I was like, this is the scapegoat for this cycle. It was so transparent, and yet I mean there's a unique kind of property of even Bitcoin like being resurrected in a different narrative. So with Bitcoin it's always something else. It still works for it. And Ethereum the same thing. So I think it kind of works in crypto too, but probably it's sort of accelerating. So the cycles may be even shorter. I mean, we might not even notice that it was a cycle, and there will be like a constant stream of scapegoats that get resurrected into something else, possibly.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to actually bring up the article, because since we talked about narratives and like how narratives are fundamentals, I think it's important to understand what happens when one narrative dies. Like, how can it actually be replaced by another? Like, what is the mechanism there?
I think one problematic narrative that I see is like all throughout, like since Bitcoin, it's the sort of narrative of equality. And I'm afraid that that's a very kind of red herring narrative. Like we think that it's going to solve world's inequality problems, and I truly think that this is wrong. It would be nice if it was like that, but like crypto is like internet is a leverage, but crypto is even more powerful leverage. And I don't think this solves the problem of the little people, or whatever you want to call it. Crypto will not help to solve inequality. It will create generational wealth for people with particular skills, but I don't think this will change. I mean, there's this saying that I always keep repeating, like the more things change, the more they remain the same. And like this is the kind of the meta narrative, like not only within crypto, but since like the French Revolution and probably before that, right? That keeps on playing again, and we always fail to kind of reach it. So I think that this is very sort of potentially destructive narrative. If that plays out wrong, the kind of the conflict and the violence cannot be sustained to markets, and can be sort of spread outside of market. And this is always bad when the sort of mimetic conflict sort of escapes the market.
By the way, Matti actually predicted what happened with Jörn and Andre. He started to write the article even before it really happened. He's just, he's just reluctant to publish a lot of his writings up front. But yeah, I have to give him a lot of credit for this particular idea that materialized pretty quickly. On the other hand, I'm a bit more optimistic in this. Crypto is not like a solution to all problems, but as in history, there is a conflict, and then there is a resolution of that conflict. But we are getting better over time in many areas. It's not like we are stuck in like any particular era of conflict. We are creating new conflict while resolving the old ones. We are getting better at coordination. Even stuff like like startups. The old internet was dominated by a couple of big startups funded from Silicon Valley, and only these people got like asymmetrically rich. Right now, I'm not saying like everyone will be equal or like equally rich, but it levels the playing field on how can we like get there, how can we make it. Like startup founders today, if they are doing like, I don't know, some DeFi project with early liquidity, they can cash out partially much sooner than like in 8 years in IPO, and other people can join them openly and freely from all over the world to kind of start building that project with them and like get piece of the pie much earlier than they would if they were like waiting for, I don't know, Facebook IPO to invest in. Or they can, they can join the project or the company on GitHub or in Discord without really applying for a job. So this coordination, I would say, that will make some things better. The same way internet made, I don't know, media, let's say, better by allowing people to be YouTubers instead of having to go to TV to kind of broadcast their message. So I'd say this will help a lot in some areas, especially in finance and in startup world. At the same time, I definitely agree that we won't see any like utopia communism or anything like it that would like create paradise on earth with everyone being equal or anything like it.
Sure, but I think that it's overselling this idea of inequality, solving inequality that can create this potential sort of strawmans that sort of haters could pick up on. Like I've seen a couple of journalists mentioning like Bitcoin Gini coefficient and stuff like that, and yeah, I just think that after a decade, we're gonna end up with like extremely wealthy people, crypto people that might be very near the top of the world, like the very very richest of the world, um, and nothing of the inequality problem solving thing doesn't materialize. Then we might have a that might be serious backlash. I actually thought that this radical market movements that that will be picked up by like sort of the smarter of the like New York Times journalists and all this like kind of left wing people in the US, but it didn't because it like the Web3 narrative. It's pretty powerful because it fits their like anti Google anti Fang propaganda. Um, but I haven't seen it kind of being picked up by those guys, but I saw that this is a cool thing for them to actually. It's smarter than just being what they are right now. um, yeah, so I just think that this is a potential very powerful narrative that, if not fulfilled, can create a strong backlash.
I think this topic is super interesting. Just like hearing what you guys think, how the world is going to look in 20 years if kind of the last crypto cycle actually plays out. And I also see like two big conflicts there. Like one, I think I agree definitely with you, Matti, that crypto will be massively wealth centralizing. I think whoever says something different, I think I strongly disagree with that. Like crypto is itself like a large network, right? It expands the internet like over like even like a wider range of people and geographies, and makes it possible to like conduct commerce like everywhere from everywhere in the world without using your identity. It's like massively leveling the playing field. But by doing that, it expands the network, and networks offer like extreme leverage. One person can reach a billion other people, right? And hence many markets will be winner take all, and sort of the best product can win the whole market, right? Or the best couple products. So on the one hand, you have this wealth centralization where you have a new like class of super elites from these original crypto natives. But at the same time, I feel like people don't really reflect about the need for government in this world. And that's what I would like to talk with you about.
I have a sort of shorter answer to that. So when we kind of bridge it to what we were just talking about, so I think that potentially, I don't know if it's correct, But equality of opportunity creates more inequality of outcome, possibly. People do not talk about it a lot, but possibly this could be the how this plays out, and then obviously with the increased ability, to become free, only certain individuals can become free. So then, on the other hand, you will have to have this compensating role of government or welfare state or UBI or whatever you want to call it, that will kind of um, act as a balancing force to that. So on one hand, you create this radical freedom tools, whatever you want to call them, and on the other hand, you need something that will compensate for it, right? So and with COVID, I actually tweeted about it. I think that like this really strengthens the welfare state, yeah. Um, and I'm actually I'm sort of afraid because I see it in my home country that this is kind of a window of opportunity for certain political ideologies, and I'm actually I don't want to say I'm scared, but I'm definitely concerned. And I don't know which is worse, because I believe that there's a sort of health crisis out there, right? But I don't know if the health crisis is worse, or the potential um, uh, crisis of epistemics, or whatever you want to call it, is worse. So I don't know which one is worse, but it definitely it's a problem.
Um, yeah, it's a hard topic, and I don't feel like I can add too much. Just crypto for me is like ability to choose, like not even like ability to choose to hold Bitcoin instead of fiat, but also ability to fork. If I don't like something, I still can fork, and I know it's hard, and it's hard to fork something with network effects and start anew. But if there is a system that provides this ability to kind of leave and to have multiple options, it's always more healthy than if you are stuck in one system. So hopefully, I hope this will be the case. I'm not sure. Crypto will keep offering this ability to choose within itself as well as outside of itself. How this translates to physical world where you still can have borders and armies, I'm not sure, but I would say it helps a lot.
Yeah, I would be actually interested to hear from Su, because he lives in Singapore, right? And if I'm not mistaken, and it's a unique sort of government, right? So what do you think about is like the role of government there is pretty kind of unique, I would say, right? And it's always talked about. I mean, it's city state, so it probably has different sort of inherent conditions.
I think Singapore kind of shows the maybe a way forward for a lot of broad types of governance where, because it's so small, they can really set policies um, that are a bit heterodox, or a bit kind of not, they don't have to have a huge debate about it for several years. They can just weigh it and then do this kind of pragmatism, decide what is correct. Like when crypto first came around, Singapore actually had a lot of exchanges, and then Singapore, after Silk Road, the government decided, for whatever reason, this is just not something we want. So they kicked them all out. They lost all their banking. Itbit moved to New York. Coin moved to Japan. A few others had to go overseas. And then, in the past few months, and really the past year and a half, they thought, wow, like, all these billionaires are getting into it. Like tech guys are in it. Like this is great now. So, like a lot of the crypto G's have moved to Singapore in the past year. They've really supported crypto now. So I think like Singapore kind of shows an interesting thing where it's like the government is very much just trying to be where it is, be where the whole market is going. So it's like, um I think for me, like crypto is the most sci-fi part of what's happening in the world right now. And you generally want to be where the most sci-fi stuff is, because that's most likely what's going to grow the fastest. And so I think Singapore's always been kind of on that forefront, and seen it as sort of, we don't stand around and say this is good or bad. We just say, this, if this is going to happen, then we want to be a part of it. So I kind of see government as being very accommodative to crypto up to a point, at least the smaller governments. You kind of see that in like Estonia or some of these smaller countries like Malta as well to some extent. Um, but I do agree with you. Like I think that it's going to be a big reckoning down the line as you get this extreme inequality from this. And I think also that like one of the things that kind of scares me about the U.S. is that I think they're definitely headed toward a more European system of sort of asset taxes, where like the richest people in the U.S. haven't been paying tax like for many years now, right? Like Trump, like he's a billionaire, hasn't paid tax in at least 15 years that we know of. So possibly more even before that. And a lot of these big tech companies haven't paid taxes since IPO. So I think you might see like you know like a short-term phase where probably not in the next few years, but maybe in the next 20, 30 years, you may see a move toward European socialism if you have democratic socialists take power. And it'll be really fascinating to see how crypto deals with that narrative, because there are some elements of it that those type of folks actually really like about crypto. And then on the other hand, there's some that they're going to have problems with, or they're going to try to influence the governance of these crypto networks with their own kind of normative views. So I think on net, like the government reaction to crypto, I think in the medium term will be very dovish, because they see it as accommodative, like they see it as sci-fi. They see it as something that give it a chance, see what happens, and then maybe after it happens, there's a further like reckoning again, and they say, was this what we actually wanted to happen or not? And then if it was, then and these people do rise up to the values and make society better in the way that societies that are democratically elected, they would think that this is actually better, what we've done here, this is not worse. So I think if crypto does fulfill that kind of economic freedom mandate, and it does make people's lives better and easier on net, then I think I don't think people have that much to worry about. I mean, in every kind of epoch, you've had wealth inequality from early adopters from this kind of thing. I don't think that's anything new to crypto, and I do think there will be a lot of selling on the way up from OGs. So I don't think they'll actually be as rich as people think. Like just thinking back to like OGs that I knew in 2013. Like yeah, some of them are rich, but a lot of them are actually a lot poorer than you would think. So I kind of see the same thing gonna happen this time. I mean, I still remember talking about Ethereum with some folks like when it was at $100, and people saying, yeah, it's gonna go to 10,000 immediately. Tons of people sold at $500. So tons of them sold at $1,000. So like I think the whole inequality thing, it's like these Gartner hype cycles. A lot of guys sell at their first 5x, their first 10x, and so there's no difference, and it keeps distributing out. So that would be kind of the dovish case for crypto inequality, where it's not going to be as bad as people think. It's going to get distributed just from price going up, from people being log wealth, if I can use that meme. So
In that sense, maybe it's extremely good that it's such a strong meme that there would always be another bear market. Because if there wasn't, like if people didn't believe in that,
that's how we trap
then
them.
there would be no reason.
That's how we get their coins. That's how we get.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the first half of our conversation with Matti and Fiskantes of Zee Prime. Please come back next week where we talk about Polkadot, different layer 2 solutions, and the role of Ethereum and Bitcoin in a world of increasing blockchain interoperability.